Brand My Podcast. This is a show for podcasters to start your podcast with confidence and elevate your voice to give your listeners a brand they can connect with. Brand My Podcast.
G'day and welcome to the Brand My Podcast. I didn't really think that one through. I'm going to get that intro set up a little bit better for our second episode. But g'day, I am Reagan McCrill. You can call me Frank though. It is my middle name. It's my grandfather's names as well. I use it because it's simpler to remember, easier to spell, and also pronounce than Reagan is. So please call me Frank. It's how I introduce myself to my clients and to fellow creatives and those that I newly acquaint myself with online. So g'day, I am Frank. Welcome to this podcast. It is called Brand My Podcast. It is the service that I do offer to clients to start their podcast with confidence. So this is a show that aligns with that. It's a show that guides you to start your podcast with confidence. We want to elevate your voice to create a standout podcast that your audience can effectively connect with so that it becomes memorable, shared, and listened to episode after episode. So a bit about me, just to get this sort of ball rolling here for this first episode. I'm a brand identity designer. I'm from Sydney, Australia, a bit west of Sydney actually, in the Blue Mountains. I'm a happily married man. My wife and I live here with our 2 children, and we created a design business a couple of years ago called G'day Frank, which now we offer this service, Brand My Podcast, as part of G'day Frank. Now, in the last couple of years, I've been helping small to medium-sized businesses brand themselves to become a standout player in their industry or amongst their audience, to be more recognized, to be memorable, and to be able to share what it is they do and they know with those that they can help. Be it a podcast now, be it a service-based business, be it a productized business, from all different industries as well. I've worked with those in the restaurant game, in personal training and health and well-being, as well as recruitment services, tech businesses, and online retail stores. So it's quite a mixed bag, and I wanted to find something that I was really kind of passionate about. And in the last 2 years, I have started my own 2 podcasts, which is why I thought this might be a great opportunity to share what I've known or come to know about podcasting with you who wants to start podcasting or who has a podcast but wants to elevate it to that next level of listenership, to be able to connect better with your audience. Rather than just creating a podcast that is just there for people to listen to, you also want your listeners to be able to connect with you, ask questions, interact with them, look what they're trying to learn from you or be entertained by you with, to gain that value that you want to give more of. Now, the reason why I want to make this podcast is to take you through 5 10-minute episodes, nice and short ones, not long hour-long things of me talking or having guests. This is just us having a chat about small, short, sharp things we can do to elevate our podcast voice, connect with our listeners, and create a great show that people want to keep coming back for. So I realized that setting up a podcast and marketing it is quite difficult. I realize that not everyone is experienced in the things that I do of branding and design, audio, editing, even video stuff. So to be able to create a great podcast nowadays, when there is such a competitive landscape of thousands and thousands of podcasts, how do we stand out? And this is why I want to help those people like you who want to start or who have already started to elevate that, to create something that is for someone, not everyone, and to be able to allow you to have a clear purpose, a great show, and have that energy to keep coming back episode after episode, because this stuff is fun. If you've already done this, you know what I'm talking about. That interaction, it's a different level of medium rather than having to create, let's say, Instagram post content or post on LinkedIn or TikTok and having to be all that and showing up and everything like that. You can create something out of just your voice. Add layers to it, obviously, with video or stripping bits out to create further content with, which we'll get into that in later episodes and further content for Brand My Podcast. But it's such a great medium to be able to connect with those you want to connect with. It could be clients, it could be customers, it could be just your general audience that you just want to give some value to. Those like-minded people like you who believe what you believe, as Simon Sinek would say. So what we want to try and achieve here with this podcast is to take the guesswork out of why your podcast exists, who it's for, and how you are going to make it successful. I think that's quite an easily achievable process. And it's why I want to help others that maybe not have the time to do all this themselves or to create something that has a good foothold to be able to take and run with. Even if you don't need my services, you might learn something from this. And I hope you do, to be able to go away and do this yourself or do it with another service provider, whoever it might be. I am here to provide that knowledge that I have about creating my own 2 podcasts, which I'm going to get to in a second, with you. But in essence, it's creating a podcast that we are able to share with others in multiple different ways, not just create one piece of audio and let it sit there and hope people listen. Because it doesn't work like that, unfortunately, especially now. So my podcasts do just that. And this podcast is going to be an example of how you can take a recording of your audio and maybe video if you want to lay that in there too, and create several bits of content out of that. How to set up your cover art, how to use certain tools to record your audio, what environment to record your podcast in, how to interact with guests, get them on the show, how to interact with your audience valuably. All these things that I have looked to do and try to achieve with my 2 podcasts, and they are called 2 Red Chairs and Branding Banter. The first of which, 2 Red Chairs, is made for my fellow creative to be able to run a design business like I have, to share that knowledge of my own and others to share those stories. So there's a clear purpose there. The other one is Branding Banter, and that is to help small businesses understand the need and necessity of branding and what that can do for them. And that's a co-hosted podcast. And I'm going to get into that podcast maybe one day when it comes to creating a show with a co-host or a co-host and guests, and what we can do to create something that does succeed, because it is tough to do. Now, that's the premise of this podcast. I really hope you stick around and check out the next few that come out after this, and maybe just hook you in for the long haul. Hope to put these out every week or 2 weeks and give you that value that you deserve when you are looking to create a podcast like this. It can be a podcast like this that is short, sharp, sweet, 5-10 minutes. It could be one that is 60 minutes or longer, like a Joe Rogan podcast. What we want to do here is create something that you feel comfortable with, that you can give something to your audience, to your listeners, to your clients, your customers, whoever it might be. So stick around, find this podcast on brandmypodcast.com for more information about how you can get in contact with me, or on my Instagram page at G'dayFrank, GDayFrank. You can also find me on LinkedIn. But those first 2 are the best place to find this podcast. It is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, depending on your provider. And I would love a review. If you thought this first episode was great, let's see what else I can pull out of my hat for the next few episodes. Until then, I will see you very, very soon.